to a well-designed business. My name is LuAnn Nigara, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company Window Works from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, Happy New Year. If you are listening to this podcast today in real time, it's January 1st, 2019, and I want to wish you a very happy, healthy, productive, profitable new year. And to get that started, I'm replaying an episode with Taylor Spellman. As you probably have heard by now, my big event is coming in March of 2019, LuAnn Nigara Live. It's about the conversation. And Taylor Spellman is one of the designer panelists that's going to be there. She will be on a panel with one of my co-authors, Shauna Lynn Simon. And Shauna Lynn Simon is an expert home stager, and she teaches interior designers and other professionals the business of home staging. And I've paired these two because Taylor Spellman has achieved a particular level of success as a home stager. Please go to her website, taylorspellman.com, and you will see exactly what I'm talking about. This isn't your garden variety home staging, folks. No, sir, it is not. But the thing about it, and this is not the level of home staging that even every one of you may or any of you may aspire to, but I find it always so exciting and just exhilarating to consider the possibilities. And when I look at Taylor Spellman's body of work in the home staging arena, it is just that. It's inspiring. It says what's possible. She has a 7,000 square foot warehouse where her and her team utilize the many objects of inventory that she has so that she can execute these really remarkable homes. And I love her tagline on her home staging page. It says, "Every home has a story. We help you tell it and sell it." And that is just right on the mark right there. I love it. So I'm replaying the episode with Taylor Spellman. We talk about a lot of things in this episode, probably the least of which is the home staging. But it's a terrific episode to get to know Taylor. She is fun. She is funny. She is down to earth. And I promise you, if you come to the event, LuAnn Nigara Live, it's about the conversation. You're going to have the chance to meet Taylor because this is a 2.5-day event. And one of the things that you should understand that I have made as an agreement with each of my designer panelists is that they don't do an in and out and, hit the ground, do their panel and run. No, I've asked them to stay around for the entire event so that in the off times, the in-between times, the networking, the dinners and the lunches and the breakfast, you have the opportunity to speak with them and really get to know them. And, because that's one of my pet peeves when I attend any type of conference in the industry or out, and you're looking forward to meeting a keynote speaker or one of the panelists, and boom, out the door they go. So whenever possible and in every situation, I've asked every single one of them to stay throughout the entire event, specifically to give more depth and richness to your experience as an attendee at the event. Okay, so keep in mind, if you are listening in real time, the early bird pricing will end on January 8th. And also anybody that does sign up during the early bird period is going to be entered to win in a drawing. 14 of you will win a 1-hour one-on-one coaching session after the event with one of the 14 of us, my 12 co-authors, myself, or my husband. Okay, so tremendous value in this early bird period. I'm just saying. All righty. Now, here is the original show with Taylor Spellman as it originally aired. Thank you so much for joining me today. Have an excellent day. And again, the best wishes for the most successful year yet.
Hi, welcome to another episode of A Well-Designed Business. I have another really fun show for you today. Taylor Spellman is here. Taylor is a New York-based interior designer and staging expert, and she is also the host of Bravo's new show, Yours, Mine, or Ours. Now, whether Taylor is designing a $10 million penthouse, the lobby of a luxury high-rise, or the showroom for a fashion client, her super down-to-earth personality combined with her bold style makes her a standout in our interior design community. Taylor has the unique and unteachable talent of mixing high-end, one-of-a-kind pieces with treasures found in an afternoon spent at the Goodwill. Recently, Taylor was featured in Architectural Digest, Us Weekly, The Real Deal, and People. Today, you will learn how Taylor came from humble beginnings and now has million-dollar clientele in New York City. Her current projects include 87 Leonard Street, 100 Barclay, and 100 Avenue A. Let me tell you a little bit about My Doma Studio, and then get ready because you're in for a real treat today. My thanks to My Doma Studio, one of our podcast sponsors. What is My Doma Studio? Well, you know, as busy interior designers, that running your own design firm isn't just about designing. There's managing contracts, clients, payments, products, and a million other things you're expected to be the master of and have control over. That's where My Doma Studio comes in. I'd like to invite you to try My Doma Studio. Go to mydomastudio.com/a-well-designed-business. You'll see why designers around the world are using My Doma Studio. My Doma Studio helps you organize the business end of your design firm so that you can spend time focusing and doing what you love, which is designing. Visit mydomastudio.com/a-well-designed-business today. And for listeners of the podcast, if you go to mydomastudio.com/a-well-designed-business, you will see that My Doma Studio has a special offer just for you. Thank you so much for joining me on A Well-Designed Business today.
Hello, LuAnn.
So, Taylor, you have such an interesting career on your hand. The latest venue or the latest what's the word I want? Manifestation, notwithstanding. That, of course, you know, this TV show, Yours, Mine, and Ours with Retza is just, I love it. It's a fabulous show. But there's a ton of things that's happened in your young life before that, right?
Yes. This is not, people, I like that quote that says, 10 years and a ton of hard work will eventually make you look like an overnight success.
Exactly.
I think it's Biz Stone says that. And that's kind of how I feel. Everyone's like, wait, where'd you come from? I'm like,
right.
It's been a long road.
Yes. Well, It's funny because I interviewed Candace Olson a couple of months ago and she said, it's a 25-year overnight success.
Yes, exactly. She has a head start.
That's it. So the thing is that, we're not going to go down completely memory lane here because there's so much in the thick of your career now that there is to talk about. But there are a few interesting things in your early career that I do want to talk about and ask you about, actually. So the first thing is that I'm just going to say for anybody that's listening to the podcast, if they're not familiar with you, which is probably unlikely, they're going to be just so thrilled to learn all about you and to see this show that you're on. But depending on how much somebody does or doesn't know about you, I was very surprised to learn that you actually you didn't even go to school for interior design, like that your degree is in something completely different and that you were setting out to be a dancer with Alvin Ailey.
Correct. Yes.
So here's the thing. I mean, look, I didn't go to college, so, there's that. I'm nothing to be ashamed of. And of course you did go to school. It's not that you didn't. You're not even like me, where you didn't even go. So I understand School of Hard Knocks. I understand learning, in 1,000 different ways that bring you to the place that you're at and that you have earned every single you, the collective you of the world, that we've earned every single notch that we have and success that we have. But the thing is, to me, I don't know how you do some remarkable interior design. This is just not, cast down by osmosis here, Taylor.
Yeah. Well, I think actually to some degree that's one of the pros. And trust me, there are pros and cons to not being formally trained. Mm-hmm. But I think one of the pros is that if you kind of don't know the rules, you have a freedom that is a little bit different than maybe somebody who knows more and says, well, that's not how it's done, or we can't do it like that. Me, I'm always kind of like trusting my instincts and my gut.
I've been in this business a long time, and I've met a lot of interior designers, and I've seen a lot of people's work, and I've certainly seen all the way from, maybe there's another career for you, sweetie, all the way to that's amazing. And yeah. I just am really, pretty dumbfounded about that. But I have to say that when I learned that your first time that when you first launched your firm, the fact that you niched it, I mean, because, this podcast has been going for 10 months, and I have to say it is the absolute number one lesson that has come across through leading interior designer over and over and over again, is that the more you niche your demographic and who you're shooting for, the faster, easier, best way to get yourself going and get your clients off the board. So you niche way back when in specializing in interior design for men, specifically Correct. Single men who are don't have their life together on the apartment front, right?
Absolutely. And that's, I kind of, from a business standpoint, I was really trying to think, all right, what do I want to do? How do I want to do it? And I'd be out, I live in New York City, and I'd be out and meet all these guys, and we'd be going to the best restaurants. They went to great schools. They are wearing an impeccable suit. They have a great job. And then you go back to their apartment, and it's just
frat boy, right?
Frat boy. Yeah. Horrific, oversized leather couch, a television, and you're drinking, wine out of a Solo cup. And I'm thinking to myself, all right, is this because these guys don't care, or is this just because there isn't an option? And when I really kind of dug deep, I felt like, no one's kind of sitting in this niche market. And I think when you see that hole in the market, you have to ask yourself, all right, has no one done this yet because it's just simply a bad idea? Or has no one done this yet because no one's thought of it? And it's a fine line, but yes. If you can err on the side of it's a good idea, no one's done it yet, then jump.
Okay. So at this point, though, you were not an interior designer before this. You are searching for what you want to do with your career, or you had started as a designer and then you saw this as a way to, as we say, jumpstart it by specializing?
Well, I had graduated from college, and I got a job in fashion, and I was working in fashion with all of these women and younger girls, and everyone was really mean, and there was a lot of nasty bullying, and I just felt like everyone was talking a lot more about, who's wearing what and talking poorly when someone would leave the room versus doing any work or anything, of value. So I started to think, you know what, I like working with men, because men in business are just boom, 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 straight into the point. Here we go. And don't get me wrong, I was kind of operating from a bad place in that moment because I was burnt out from working with the fashion girls. No offense, fashion girls.
Right.
But so I kept thinking, all right, what do I want? And I want to work in an environment with men. Okay. I love interior design. That's something that's my, what I'm passionate about, just sort of for no reason. Because again, I have no training or anything. And so I just kept thinking. And I started to work at a startup after the fashion job. And the startup was with a lot of these young guys. So I basically spent a year just asking every person who would possibly listen to me, do you think that this concept has legs?
Okay.
And then at the age of 23, I just was young enough that I didn't have any fear. And I just jumped in and started this company.
See, there it is right there, though. You see, you spent a year researching, asking, questioning, thinking about it. So, it's funny because a lot of times I think that somebody sitting home in their, third floor bedroom, that's their design studio, thinks, oh, I have an idea and it will never work, and they stop there and they look at somebody like yourself 10 years out in the career that you built, and they don't recognize that there was a moment too for you, but you don't stop at the idea. You do the good business background by asking and looking into the market and finding out if there's, really a need. Asking, like you said, if you had this available, would you pay for it? If you had this available, would you pay for it? You know what I mean?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So I like that, Taylor. I like it a lot. So, but the thing is, so now obviously now we're getting a picture here. So you were a dancer. So that's a creative art form. You were working in fashion. That's a creative art form. So it's not like you're coming from like accounting and calculus and you decide to
Correct.
go into
Okay. There was a trend here for sure.
Exactly. And I just need to say, as an aside, I don't know what the heck it is about the fashion world, but Vanessa De Leon was on the show and Gail Davis was on the show, and they both worked in fashion, and they both said the same thing, that it's that whole devil wears Prada nonsense. And what the heck? If interior designers can be nice, fashion people can't be nice? Like, what's the big deal? I don't get it.
I don't know, but it's a chronic thing that I want no part of.
Well, and you know what makes me say, the first thing that goes to my mind is I should start a fashion house and be the only one that's nice to all my employees in it.
Yeah, wear
probably
kindness.
Steal all of the other employees.
I'm telling you.
Oh man. So, but anyway, okay. So that helps me get a little clarity on it. Wasn't just, hey, I think I'll do this, and off you go. So I like that. Okay. So then, of course, what happens from there is you start to build this company and you start to do more and more work, and then naturally, what happens is, all of these men, they have, sisters and mothers, and you start to get a name for yourself.
For sure.
Okay.
And I think that people underestimate word of mouth, and that's not something to be underestimated. I've run the majority of my business on that. And I think that if, people kind of get bigger than themselves and think about, all right, well, marketing, advertising, this, that, it's like, honestly, if you can secure some good people who are on the ground, speaking your praises, that will go a very long way.
Mm-hmm. So tell me a little bit about that in execution. So you are, you're doing this company and you're saying that you're not really spending a lot of money in the to market and everything. And it's one thing to tell us to garner this word of mouth, and it's another thing. How did you do it? What did you do? Were you like consistently at networking events? Were you consistently point blank asking your clients if they had friends or family? Like, get us into really what you did. Go back to the beginning of your company, because, I can ask this of a lot of people, but the beginning of their company sometimes is, first year earnings, maybe 100,000, and 10-year earnings is 500,000. That's not what we're looking at. We're looking at an empire has been created in 10 short years. So get us real in really building it from the beginning. And I'm going to take a stab that it was with intention, that you intended it to be big.
Yes, absolutely. I have always, for some reason, had this idea that I would have my own company and I would have a TV show. And I'm in an interesting position these past couple months, because I'm like, wow, now what? It's like, holy moly, this is like everything I had dreamed of has kind of come around. But can
I tell you something there before you go on?
Yes.
The next thing that you dream and intend for yourself, it'll happen too. I mean,
I'm sitting here, I'm racking my brain. I'm thinking, all right, the world is your oyster.
Yes.
And I do actually believe that, because to your point, it's all about intention.
Exactly.
And I think that
you put it out there, call it from the universe, right? So, okay, I had to cut you off just because I think it's very interesting that you actually had both of those intentions young. And of course, now they have come true. So go ahead. So to get us back into the nuts and bolts of doing it.
Yes. So to your point earlier, I think it actually kind of does come back to the niche idea, no matter what that is. Mm-hmm. And I think that in order to compete, you need to have a competitive advantage. So first, you figure out what your competitive advantage is, and that will answer who you're trying to target. That will answer that question largely. So for me in the beginning, it was, okay, my competitive advantage is that I'm going to be catering to men and be the only interior design firm that is exclusively for bachelors. So therefore, I immediately know to some degree who I can go hit up. And whether that was going into male-only spas, barbershops, gyms, various places like that, where my demographic is coming in every day and leaving a pamphlet or, leaving information out, literature. That was very helpful and did wonders.
And you did that.
Yes, for sure.
I'm gonna bet you that most people just went, oh my goodness, even Taylor Spellman did that.
Oh my gosh. Like, actually, someone said to me the other day, they're like, you're really down to earth for all that you've achieved so far, whatever. And I was laughing because, I've been hustling so hard for the last 10 years, and I just kind of feel like I've only been successful for like 10 days.
Right.
I'm
right.
like,
I hear you.
Down to earth. I'm like, what?
I'm out here working, right? But see, that's awesome because, I run into people all the time that they're like, oh, I don't know how to get my business off the ground. And I'm like, well, did you go to where your market is? Did you put out, I used to put out door knockers on people's front doors. You know what I'm saying? Yes. And they're like, well, I didn't do that. Oh, okay. Right. So you just wanted it to just happen. Oh, I get it. Okay.
Right. And I do think if I could make one thing very, very clear, nothing just happens. Right. Not one thing. And I'm not trying to be negative. Nope. I'm just saying not one thing just happens. Everything takes a tremendous amount of elbow grease. And as soon as you can kind of wrap your brain around that, the better off you are.
Right. So you develop, there is obviously some investment into marketing. So you develop these either business cards or little brochures, and you literally go to the places that the men are, and you go to the barbershops and the spas and the different things like you said. And one by one comes the phone calls.
For sure. And then later on, as the business started to grow, like what you were saying earlier, sisters are calling, these guys get married, they call me back and say, hey, I'm married now. Can you come in and do my marital home? And, one thing leads to another. And then I started to see another hole in the market. So I was seeing a new niche, and this is like, 5-6 years later. Okay. That in New York City, there's not that many prominent stagers. There's really, I could only see one that I was in my imagination deciding was my competition. And I'm thinking to myself, all right, well, again, why is this girl running a monopoly in New York City, no less?
That's the truth. In no less New York City, you're exactly right. It's like, my goodness, the flip over, turnover capital of everywhere, probably, right?
For sure. This is like, the competition is fierce here. And why is no one competing with her? So I looked at that and I found out that the way that she was positioning her staging company was almost the exact opposite of how I would do it. And so it's like I was asking myself that same question. All right, well, is no one doing it the way that I think it should be done because it's a bad idea? Or is no one doing it the way that I think it should be done because it just hasn't ever been done that way? And I think staging used to be, you'd bring in sort of a neutral toned couch, a cream rug, and a beige throw pillow and say, hey, I staged it. Whereas I say, who is this demographic that we're catering to? How are we going to maximize price per square foot? What are we saying? How are we going to say it? What is the ethos of this building if it's a new development, that kind of thing? And be very aggressive with the approach versus passive and say, oh, let's just keep it very plain and beige and neutral and kind of hope that someone comes in here and doesn't just die of boredom and take a nap on this couch.
And just their checkbook falls out and somebody could say, write the check while they're sleeping.
Yeah, they can take advantage of them. Yes, exactly. So die of boredom. Once I saw that gave me more information to say, okay, now this is how I'm going to go and test out this idea in the market, because I'm going to go to this real estate broker and say, hey, this is the approach that I think should work. And then, I could see, all right, all these real estate brokers could use my expertise. And then once I stage an apartment, how often do I then get hired to design the person who bought the home?
Right.
A lot of the time.
Right. So in the beginning now, so then when you use the beginning of the new iteration of the company with the staging aspect of it, do you go back to the same old school tactics as originally, pounding the pavement, meeting the different realtors and so forth?
For sure. And I always say, I just like to, let me get in front of somebody, and then that will make all the difference. If you think you're going to send out some mass emails, maybe you're even going to do a mailer, these things, like, people are so overwhelmed nowadays with information, and any market is pretty saturated no matter what. So how do you go in and make an impact? And that's either going to be shaking hands or making some sort of relationship with somebody somewhere. And maybe that's the real estate broker, or maybe that's the secretary,
right?
Or the assistant.
And did you literally, look them up on, I was going to say the phone book, but of course that wasn't happening. Look them up online and call, make an appointment, cold call, walk in on them, or just go to real estate events, networking events that realtors, because, you're not talking about breaking into, Podunk USA real estate market here. I mean,
right.
We're talking about breaking into New York City high-end luxury real estate. So,
right, and everybody is rude and has no tolerance.
Well,
and
and it's a club. Let's be real.
Absolutely.
And here's the other thing. What I'm saying to myself as I'm picturing this, the wherewithal to do it, but now I'm saying to myself, and she's like 26 doing this. This is like 6 or 7 years ago, right? I mean,
yeah.
Yeah. Like, so, you're not exactly like, hey, let's let all the little girls into the party. You know what I'm saying?
For sure. And I think that's, I guess, an interesting thing, because I think you could be 26 or you could be 46. And the bottom line is, do you have enough confidence to go in and sell yourself?
Exactly.
And then execute what you said you were going to do. Right.
So I'm saying I'm in awe of you, because
well, thanks, LuAnn.
Seriously, and so the thing is, my question though is, how did you start to cultivate and make those connections and relationships? What did you cold call, or did you actually start to just go to, real estate? Like, in other words, a designer has, if you go to the design industry, there's 1,000 events related to the interior design industry. You can go to Holiday House, you can go to Kips Bay, you can go to, a meeting, a panel discussion at the showroom. I imagine in the real estate industry, it's the same thing. So is that how you made your relationship building, or did you cold call and just try and get in through and make friends with the secretaries?
I guess it would be both is what I did. I have a problem that is a blessing and a curse, but I always find out who is the absolute best person in whatever the industry is. And, for me, I think, all right, I want to model myself after that person to some degree. Or in this case, I knew who the biggest developer was in New York City, and I just went straight to that guy. Hey,
love it.
I'm your gal. Here we go. And he's like, I'm sorry, who are you again? How'd you get into my office? But
so this is Ryan. You went to him?
Well, actually,
or it was a guy before that.
There's a guy before that,
okay.
But Ryan is a perfect example of that, because we're speaking of Ryan Serhant. Right. He's on the show $1 Million Listing, so a lot of people know him through that. But at the same time, he is truly one of the smartest people I've ever worked with. Like, a really sound businessman, very smart, really, really a hardworking guy. But yeah, I went up to him and we were at a cocktail party. And I said, listen, I'm going to stage your next project and design it. And then you're going to work with me from that point on. And he's like, again, like, who are you and why are you talking to me? But I will say too, for everybody listening, like, when you get that tiny little opportunity, don't mistake it, because Ryan gave me a really sort of BS job. I knew it was a crappy job.
Really?
It was very low risk. If I bombed, he wasn't gonna, it wasn't gonna make or break him. But I knew it was small and I knew it was crappy. But I took that little tiny crappy job and made it the best it could ever be. And basically that apartment was on the market for 2 years. No one could sell it. They hired Ryan to try to rehabilitate the sale. He brought me in. I said, yeah, okay, I can do A, B, and C. And then there was a bidding war once the apartment was listed, $50,000 over asking price, paid in cash in 1 week.
For a property that sat for 2 years before you got your hands on it.
Exactly.
Well, see, that's the thing. Like you said, you go in and you create the opportunity, but you got to bring the goods.
For sure. There's a lot of people who create an opportunity and then get to the plate and they're like, oh shoot, this is going to be a lot of work.
I don't know how to swing.
Exactly. Get ready to swing.
So now let me ask you a question about the logistics of that. at that point, so I'm thinking like my brain goes to, of course you have a business that's 5, 6 years, 7 years in the making at this point or whatever it is. But how does that work? I mean, and I mean really like, so he says to you, all right, here, you know what, you can do this property. And like you said, you evaluated it right away that he didn't give you anything that was going to risk him. And by the way, why should he? Let's be real, right? Exactly.
Gamble.
Exactly. But do you then have to, in order to stage that property properly and make the impact and the splash that you knew was your one shot to make with this man, do you then, is that like, you know, hey, you know, it's going to cost me $5,000, it's going to cost me $10,000 to do this, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, because I would think that there's another decision that happens in this, because he's not hiring and paying you to do it. Well, how does it work? In other words, did you say to him, okay, I can do it, what's your budget? Or, you know, how does that work?
Well, this is a kind of, I'll say it very quickly, but it was a little bit of a funny story because the apartment was kind of falling down all around itself, and there was tons of wallpaper and wall-to-wall carpeting and things that are just a major deterrent. The bottom line is whoever was going to come in and buy this unit, I said to him, you know, they're going to clearly gut it. So all we need to do is trick the eye to be excited about the space versus so intimidated or overwhelmed by it that the buyer's just going to walk out the door. So I brought in, since I'm coming from the interior design background, to staging versus the other way around.
Right.
I said, I'll bring in my contractor and he will take down the wallpaper, paint, rip up some of the carpeting and whatever. All in, we'll say, is $25,000, myself included. So the day came, the contractor shows up, he gives me the quote, drops off his paint, and then we're starting the next day. I sent an intern over there, hey, let me know how the progress is going. And the intern says, yeah, they're not here. The contractor's not here. And I'm like, not there as in maybe they're on their lunch break, or not there as in like they didn't show up. She says, no, he's not here. He's never been here. The contractor intern falls off the face of the planet and is nowhere to be found and has taken $10,000 with him wherever he has gone.
No.
And this is my first opportunity with Ryan Serhant. So I called my lawyer and said, hey, real quick, what should I do? And he said, oh, halt the project immediately. Call Ryan, tell him that the money's been stolen and that the project's on hold. So I'm like, okay, great. Hung up.
Awesome first impression.
Meanwhile, yeah, there is no chance I am making that phone call. I literally go to the job myself. I spend the whole night ripping out down wallpaper, getting everything, you know, just kind of like as best I could personally. Called in a completely new team, and then I was the general contractor for the rest of the time and oversaw all these guys finishing the job. Ryan never was the wiser, had no idea that this had happened. And then obviously the end result turned out great. And I told him, you know, months later, hey, let me tell you what happened that first job you gave me. But I think that's an example of just sort of how things go, you know?
Yes, you have to be prepared to weather the storm. Like, I mean, that's amazing. Right. What I also love in there, by the way, let's not go over the fact that you had a lawyer to call. I mean, not that you followed his advice, and that's your prerogative. and of course, you had the better instinct there, and he gave you the advice he needed to give you. But you know how many people are in business 6-7 years and they don't have a lawyer to call? So, oh my goodness, Taylor, that's unbelievable story. Yeah,
it was quite the experience, but it turned out okay in the end.
You are scrappy.
Actually, I don't give myself a lot, but I am very scrappy.
I love it. I love it.
Great.
Well, you know what? It's a work ethic that is just, you know, there's all different personality types. First of all, the personality type that walks up to Ryan and says, I'm going to be your next stager and you're going to give me every job after that. Let's just go there. But then, you know, in the face of adversity, you're not just, you know, sitting there going, well, that's it. I'm screwed. You know, I'm like my first big break and the universe, you know, screwed me and I can't this and this never works out and yada, yada. It's like, you know, put your big girl panties on and go strip that wallpaper.
Yeah. And press on. Yeah.
I love it.
For sure.
That's amazing. He probably months later when you told him probably looked at you like you had 10 heads.
Yeah. As he said, that's incredible because everybody else calls me constantly and tells me, you know, all the problems. And as a business owner myself, I know that when my employees call me and say, "Hey, this is what went wrong."
Brutal.
My question is, well, then what are you gonna do about it?
Yeah.
Here we go. Use your head. Let's troubleshoot a bit, then call me.
Right, exactly. Well, and I feel the same way when my employees come to me, but I know it so clearly that that's the way I like things done because, of course, I'm, dealing with a lot of interior designers. Our business model is that, we do window treatments for interior designers, and I would never call an interior designer and say, you're not going to believe it. The fabric is at the workroom. It's completely in shreds. It got, ink dyed all over it. And what should we do? I'm going to tell you the truth of what happened, but after I've solved it, it's like, I just need to let you know we're 4 days behind schedule because the fabric was flawed and we've ordered new fabric and it's on its way and blah, blah, blah. I mean, you don't troubleshoot with your end user client.
Right. They're going to shoot you and you're going to be not hired again.
Exactly. I think that's amazing. I just love that story so much. I can't stand it. Oh, man. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a break for me to tell everybody, Taylor, about Cravat Inc. and Curated Cravat. And then we'll come back and we'll talk about the things that are happening now in your life and your business. Okay?
Fantastic.
Hi, taking a minute here to share my great thanks to the featured sponsor of the podcast, Cravat Inc., and also to tell you about CuratedCravat.com. With the introduction of CuratedCravat.com in 2015, Cravat has truly become the first and the last stop for all things design. At CuratedCravat.com, they maintain an edited collection of the most unique, high-quality finished products across all categories for the home, including furniture, lighting, bedding, rugs, accessories, and so much more. Their comprehensive collection features customized designs as well as unique hand-picked pieces from the global design market. Here's my favorite part. I've been very vocal about this. This is all available exclusively to the trade, to you, the interior designer, through an e-commerce platform. That's right, no direct consumer purchasing. They have your back at Cravat Inc. And I would love to know if you've checked out their innovative, ready-to-ship upholstery program. This program features a selection of their most popular cravat frames and fabrics packed for immediate shipment. This is groundbreaking in our industry. Where else can you, as an interior designer, find someone that has your back, trade only, and delivers custom quality furniture fast? I'll tell you where else. Nowhere else. That's where else. Now, designers, you can also shop the site by product category, by stylized product stories, and by the curated rooms designed by industry tastemakers. These same people that we've had on the show, and you've heard them talk about it. Candace Olson, Denise McGahey, Elizabeth Lamont, to name a few. At CuratedCravat.com, they are committed to making your job more efficient by providing unmatched customer service coupled with an exceptional product offering. They stand firm in their mission to serve the interior design trade at the very highest level. Here's another fabulous feature that I love. The process is so simple. Yes, it is. Design, click, deliver. That's it. It's that simple. So head over to CuratedCravat.com. See it for yourself. See all the beautiful things and see how simple it is. And then guess what? When you're ready to check out, you get to take 10% off a single purchase as a listener of this podcast, just for you. Enter CK Podcast, CKPODCAST at the checkout, and you'll get 10% off as a thanks for listening to the podcast. And I want to say thank you and thanks to Cravat. All righty. So, still like smiling about that story. And of course I could ask you 9,000 more questions about the beginning of the business there and how you really started to transition. But we know where it brings us. It brings us to, the things that are happening now. Now, I'm aware, obviously, of the yours, mine, or ours. Is there something in between yours, mine, and ours that we should cover before we talk about the opportunity with this TV show? I think there was, well, you did, I'm not as familiar, forgive me. I'm not as familiar with $1 Million Listing, but I understand you were on that show as well, right?
Yeah, a little bit. So once I did meet Ryan and start working with him so much, all my properties and my work started to be featured on the show.
Okay.
So one thing led to another, and the two have actually nothing to do with each other, but it did work out nicely that I was on that show and then this opportunity came up.
Okay. And so just to go back to some of your intention, when you knew as a young woman, that you wanted to be very successful, have a big business, and be on TV, is that one of the things, the motivations that pushed you to introduce yourself to Ryan because you knew he was part of the TV program? Or I don't even know if he was always a part of it at that point.
I mean, the TV thing kind of was an added bonus, but from my standpoint in that moment, I just felt like I know the volume he does real estate wise in New York. I know the clientele that he has. And those were two things that I would have loved to have gotten involved in. And, it actually did happen to work out. And the TV thing, again, it kind of was a bonus. Once I really was building a relationship with him and we really knew each other, I said, oh, by the way, I've been working on a Bravo show as well. And I think he looked at me like, yeah, sure you are. But eventually he's like, oh yeah, you weren't kidding. I'm like, no, I'm not much about just saying random things. But yeah, so it was kind of a coincidence. But
and so there was another show that you were working on that didn't get picked up into a television show, is what you're saying.
Correct. I had shot a pilot, and the final hour, Bravo said, hey, sorry, we're not going to put it up, but we really like you and we really want to work with you. And that was like 4 years ago. So at that time I was crushed because I really had put all my heart and soul into that project. And then in the final hour, it got vetoed. But 4 years later, they called and said, hey, we're ready for you.
Okay.
Let's do it.
And you're ready now, right?
Exactly. I was very ready.
Yeah. So tell me about the little bit of that. So we understand how you build a business. You get on boots on the ground and you make sure you tell everybody that you know what you're doing and what it is that you are doing and how you can serve them, whether it was the bachelor market or it was the real estate market. When you thought and knew you wanted to do something with the TV show, the first one, did you do the same thing, come up with a concept and an idea and pitch it? Or was there some sort of serendipitous something and then that had because I'm sure everybody out there's like, I want a TV show. How do I do that?
Yeah, that would be great. Well, it was slightly serendipitous to some degree because I had it in my mind that that's something I wanted to do, especially because the business at the start was so niche based. I thought it would kind of lend itself nicely for a show. So I got a very small piece of press, and once that piece of press came out, like 9 production companies called over time. And I think that obviously production companies are just kind of always looking for what's the fresh new thing, what's the angle, what's the newest, whatever. So that worked out, and CBS was the first person to call, and they said, hey, do you want a TV show? And I'm like, yeah, this is great. This is so easy. This is, look at this, like shooting fish in a barrel. Like all these people are calling me, and this is so great. But then like anything else, once you really dig in, you find out it's not quite as easy as you had thought it was. And so I have been rejected. I mean, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. I got rejected over the course of the past 7 years.
Wow.
Working through to get this TV show. And, it's like anything else. You participate and you manifest and you have a vision and you do everything in your power to, create opportunity for yourself. And I had continuously created new ideas, new concepts, stayed in front of producers, stayed in front of networks, and it worked out. And so, back to what we said a while back, nothing just happens. And this is a good example of that.
That is an excellent example of that, Taylor, because, I have to say, that's why in the beginning regarding the business that was originally towards bachelors, and then when I asked you really how did you get into the real estate connections and market, I knew that it's a lot of hard work and that it's a lot of, I always had a saying in sales, we have to put it in front of 25 people to get one yes. You know what I mean?
For sure.
And so, but I have to say, even as much as I believe that your answers were going to, support my findings and my experience to that, I would not have thought the same with the TV show, I have to say. So it's sort of interesting to know that it's the exact same thing. I really would have said that, oh, okay, so she worked with him, and you're beautiful woman, you're smart woman, you with a terrific personality. It's like, oh, okay, sure, just make a TV show, right? Never would have thought there was 100 pitches in between, the first thought and then the actual show.
Yeah, my mom sat me down a couple years ago, and she said, "You know what, Taylor? I think this is one you're going to have to let go. Like you might not, I don't think this is going to be
even
your thing.
You might not be able to make this happen," she said, right?
Yeah. I was like, we'll see.
Not yet, Mom, not yet.
Yeah.
Well, that's, you know what? That's really something. Look, I think it's, I'd love to say to you, oh, I wish it happened easy, but I'm sort of glad it didn't, because, nothing happens easy for most people. Nothing happens easy. And I think it's, of course you probably have a much deeper appreciation and level of, professionalism attached to it, because you've actually worked so hard to create it.
Yeah, for sure. And I do think also, it's cliche, but when things come really quick, they usually go really quick. And I think when you build something really from an organic place and you have good intentions and you want to help people, versus, let's see, I want to make money or I want to be famous, that's quick. That doesn't usually stay around for too long. So yeah, 10 years later, would I have been cool if this happened 5 years ago? Yeah, it would have been great. But at the same time, like you said, nothing comes easily. Right.
And so the show itself, I have to say, anybody who knows me, they know that I really don't go for a whole lot of decorating shows and things like that, only because I'm all day in it. And I admire I don't have the actual level of passion that all of my guests have and all of our listeners have for interior design. I don't want to break anybody's hearts out there, but, I'm a huge fan on the sidelines and certainly can appreciate the talent. And that is what happens with me. I usually am very much in awe of watching what you guys do and create with, the spaces and so forth. But I have to show you, your show I love it. I have to say, Taylor, some of the alternate plans that you have come up with have been well, first of all, we should let you explain, because in case if this is new for them, because the show is only on maybe 3-4 weeks, right? At this point, where we're recording. Right. So we're recording, towards the end of November 2016, and the show is fairly new. And so tell us the premise, so anybody who isn't familiar with it yet.
Yeah. So the premise is that we have a couple, and each member of the couple has a fantastic home. So hypothetically speaking, she has a great home, he has a great home. And there's pros and cons to each, and they can't figure out which one to go in. He loves it because it's near the city, but she doesn't like it because there's not enough room for her stuff. The other property is great, but there's no swimming pool, or whatever the situation is. And so I come in and make the edits for both homes and improve both homes so that they can really imagine themselves in the space together. And then simultaneously, the real estate agent on the show, Reza Farahan, he goes and shows them 2 new properties. So in the end, they have 4 options.
He's a riot.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's a real piece of work.
Cracks me up.
Yeah.
But I have to say, I think I've seen the first 4 episodes, and I have to say, there was 1 or 2 where I thought, these people are head cases. They're not about I have to say, not head cases in a mean way. I don't mean to say every couple so far has been really, really nice people, but the one couple with the man and the woman where she had the place outside the city and he wanted to be in the city, and they were actually married for a year and still weren't living together. I just thought that seems so much psychologically deeper than just real estate.
Oh, for sure. And I have to say that. I mean, that's what's so fascinating, to be invited into these people's homes. You're not really coming in there to discuss throw pillows.
Right.
You know, we're coming in, we're like, all right, what is the deep rooted issue here that we need to kind of address? Because usually there's something there.
Well, and that's what, when that episode in particular, because I felt like, okay, we can call it real estate. We could say he's in the city and she's in the country, and she likes the space and he likes the convenience. But and they seem to be a happy couple. They seem to be copacetic, you know what I'm saying? But I'm thinking, any couple that's willing to be married for a whole year and still not sleep under the same roof, it's not just about the space. Like, there's something, and I thought, you can design all day long to make it work for them, but you're not there with your Dr. Joyce Brothers or your Dr. Phil hat on, fixing the other stuff. I was like, how are they going to do this?
It's like, it was interesting. I mean, some of the couples like cried at various points over various reasons, and you're kind of like, but I also think it's to me, the home is so closely related to and representative of how you're feeling, how you're doing, where you are in your life.
Yes.
It does really reflect, where you're at. And I think that people kind of talk about home like it's a luxury item, but it's not. It's a very critical and essential part of being alive. And I think, that angst and those problems relative to making the decision of just to be under one roof, it's very complex, and it's not really about like, oh yeah, let's talk about the staircase. Right. It's usually much deeper than that.
Yeah. I mean, I just had to say the contrast of the few couples, the 4 couples that I saw. So that couple, I was just like, well, she's got her hands full, because it's not about real estate, know. And then the two men with the children. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so that did seem a little bit easier to me, because the one husband in the marriage was just like, I'm not having my bathroom in the middle of my bedroom here. This is nonsense. Right. You know what I mean?
It was pretty clear.
That's just like, so I thought, okay. So, and they seemed like they wanted to be together. The kids wanted to be, in the other, all together under one roof. So that, I thought, okay, she just has to come up with a solution. And then the couple where he is from New Orleans and or Philly, or she's up here in the Philly area and he's in Atlanta. Savannah. Yes. And because he had that beautiful apartment on the corner in Savannah there. And they really did want to be together. You could feel like they were ready to be together, but, she didn't fit in his place. It was like, well, where am I supposed to go?
Right.
That was some solution. And I have to, I'm going to ask you a little behind the scenes dirt on that now, because when you came up with the solution that the guest bedroom was her space, became her dressing room, and became her, part of her closet and so forth, and her vanity, and then the Murphy bed comes down to make it a guest room. I have to say, genius, loved it. But having stepchildren of my own, grown-ups that visit now for weekends and different things like that, I thought to myself, that works for them, but did it mentally make the children feel like they were displaced and it really isn't their bedroom to sleep in, it's really her dressing room? And by the way, you know what I mean? Like,
which I get. I understand that. I think the important thing to remember is that life is change. And, a lot of these people are kind of trying to navigate that and are struggling with, I feel bad because my daughter's going to be angry and all this stuff. And, it's a lot, but guess what? We move, we change, we grow, we're in different positions, we're in different situations. And it's important to kind of look at it in an honest way and embrace it and say, maybe the dynamic has shifted to some degree, but here you are, your father is very happy now, and it's a different situation, but that's life. My parents just had to move out of their home. It's been a huge change for my family when we go home and visit them, that they're no longer in the house that we grew up in, but this is life.
Right.
And we got to adjust.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun to watch. And of course, Retza is so invested in his side winning.
Oh yeah. Very invested.
He's so funny. He's like for blood. You know what I mean?
Yeah. When he would go and show the houses to the couple, and I would be, sitting at my computer all day working away.
Right.
The couple would always come back and be totally drinking the Reza Kool-Aid and be like, Taylor who? And I'd have to kind of like, hey, remember me? You know, 'cause he's quite the salesman, that guy.
Yes. Well, and the other thing I think is, I also thought was pretty interesting is that you guys all end up sitting down with a powwow over wine. And I'm thinking, how can she drink wine and talk on a TV show and talk about
please. The only way I can do anything is by drinking wine. So make no mistake of that.
I'm just like, oh my God. I'd be like a glass in and be like, wait, what room, stair, where, whatever. Just get a...
No, my best ideas come after 2 or 3 glasses. Here we go. Creative juices.
It's awesome. And give us a little bit about the reality of that. So now say you're redesigning a space in Savannah, redesigning a space she was in the Philly suburb here in Jersey, near where I grew up, down where she is. But so the thing is, are you executing that with your team back in New York? I mean, how much time from the time you visit these spaces until we see you guys again? Do you get a minute, a day, a week, a month? How long? Because now we're going to talk about the design part of it, how you actually execute that.
So we're with the couple for about a week, and the design takes about that much time. The production company will give me enough information to know what is really allowed or not, like what's to code. Okay. For instance, I remember one project, we could only go back a certain amount to put the pool in, and not to the left, but to the right. And then another thing was we were able to add on to the roof, but we couldn't obstruct the facade of the building at all, the front, because it was in the historic district. Okay. So they would team me up with information like that so that everything that I'm bringing to the table is viable. Okay. But then I would just sit and draw and plan and, rethink.
You have two women at your office that work for you, Jacqueline and Lana. Do they get involved with that with you, or they're back home in New York and they're running your regular design clients?
Yeah. So there's Jackie, Lana, and then we also have Insha, Hyra, and Stephanie. They're not on the website, but there's 3 other girls, and everyone's, I'm keeping the 2 businesses pretty separate. Mm-hmm. I have the show, which is great. And then I have my actual business that they just tend to when I'm away. Mm-hmm. And I would, get my lunch break, get on the phone, talk to them, see what's going on, Skype, FaceTime, make sure everything's on the up and up. They would send me photos of a coffee table. I would say, no, put that book 2 inches to the right. And they're like, okay,
Nothing like micromanaging us, Taylor, exactly. From 30,000 miles away.
Yeah, like, are you sure you don't need to get back on set? Yeah.
And so just a little bit of logistics on that. I'm running the business while being in the TV show. So it's a 10-show arc, correct? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what is that? What is your commitment to that? Is it, 10 weeks in a row you had to be out of your business, or is it 1 week production with one location and one family, one couple, for instance, and then the next once a month? Like, how do you actually run that?
Yeah. Every show has sort of a different thing. Ours happened to be that we shot for 3 months straight. Oh. So there was no break. I didn't go home for 3 months. I didn't, I just was on the road. Wow. That was not as glamorous as I had initially sounded.
Glamorous at all, I have to say.
Hotel. Wow, that's great. And then I'm eating chicken fingers for the 14th night. I'm like, oh God. Oh my goodness. So yeah, it was 3 months straight, and it was very rigorous and demanding, but
well, and that's 12 weeks in a row of coming up with 2 new designs. That's 24 designs, basically.
Yes.
It's 20 designs, right? 10 people, 10 couples. That's insane.
I did start to lose my mind a little bit. I came up with another idea for a business in that time because my idea, I was so shot from designing so much stuff that my brain just started to do weird things. So if I have this other concept I'm working out, we'll talk about that next podcast.
Oh, okay. We're not going to hear about it. Okay.
That's top secret.
That's very cool. No, I mean, honestly, as soon as you said it, it didn't sound one bit glamorous to me. I was like, that's exhausting. That's exhausting. That's just, and it's exhausting physically to be away from your own environment for, a month, let alone 3. And then, like I said, and here's the thing, any single interior designer out there that's thinking about trying to come up with 20 in a row, full out, renovation, make better, creative things in a row. That's exhausting. But then everyone is going to be judged on national television. Hello.
Right.
Whole nother level of crazy pants happening.
When the show was first coming out, I started to get this like anxiety thing that was like causing a headache, and it was like impairing my vision. And I'm like, what is this? What is going on? And someone was like, well, where do you think the stress is coming from? I'm like, where do you think the stress is coming from? I'm about to showcase these ideas on national TV. This could go very poorly.
I don't know, Einstein. Let's see.
Yeah. Where do you think it's coming from?
No, I mean, it's a real thing. Look, we each one of us is accustomed to creating something that's going to be judged, but it's typically judged by a single couple that, even if they hate it, they're not going to look at you and go, I hate it. They're going to say, I don't like that sofa. I don't like that fabric. And you tweak it. There's no risk. This
right.
is like a complete national judgment.
Yeah. It's a very public judgment.
Yes.
And that's the funny thing too. I mean, in this day and age on social media, people will say crazy things, and you're like, oh, okay,
true. Well, you couldn't have gotten any bad. I mean, I've only seen, like I said, the first 4 shows, but I was really legitimately. I went in and I said to Kim is the interior designer that works for me, and she loves you, and she loves Candace Olson, and she, watches these shows, and she's always drawn to, terrific high level interior design. And she pays attention to a lot of the high level design blogs and so forth. And she's always saying to me, you should get this one on the show, and you should get that one on the show, and I'm like, oh, okay, let me go find out who they are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, but I came back and I said to her, have you seen the show yet? And this was like, I think it was on, well, it was on, the 4th show was on because I watched all 4 in one night. And I literally thought that I was going to watch one and have to be like, all right, I have to watch another. And I was like, ooh, I'm staying up and watching these. And I really, truly, and I wouldn't even bother going down this road if I just thought it was okay. I would have just said, hey, great show, whatever. But, I said to her, oh, no, you have to watch it. You're going to love it. I said, her ideas are really out of the box.
Good.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah. No, I'm very impressed. I mean, I don't mean for anything. Nobody's going to sign you up a new show based on what I'm saying, but
never know.
Oh, that's awesome. So listen to me. You are really something else, and I am so impressed by you. I truly, truly am. Before you leave, is there something that you would say? I mean, you've shared terrific things. You've told us nothing is easy, that you have to fight for everything you get. You have to be proactive. You have to figure out, a need in the marketplace. You have to research it before you just jump into it. But once you jump in with 2 feet, and you work very hard to make it happen, make intention for your dreams, and, make moves to make them happen. So not to say that you haven't given us a ton of great advice, but is there anything lasting left that you would say to your colleagues that are listening and maybe thinking would love to, emulate you in some way?
I guess I was saying this to someone from my office the other day, that it's okay to get discouraged, but don't get tired. I think that people think that it's going to be a little easier, but you have to constantly, every day you're making an edit, every day you're changing something. But keep in mind the fact that if you just stick to your goal and you keep adjusting the sails, you'll get there. Nice. Just keep going. You can get discouraged, but don't get tired.
I like it. I like it, Taylor. I like it a lot. You're really something else. I really, truly appreciate your spending the time with me, especially knowing how busy you are in the middle of all of this going on. And I will fall over if it's not just one more success after another, because, you have the whole package. You're a smart woman and you work very hard. And of course, you're a fun personality, and you really seem to have your head on straight. I'm very happy to have met you.
Oh, well, thank you very much. This is a great boost for me. So thank you.
You're welcome. So let's just tell everybody. So the show is on Bravo, yours, mine, or ours. And then, of course, give everybody your website, because I know you also have some really fun projects coming up or that are going on in New York now, too, in Tribeca and Park Avenue and stuff, right?
Yes, really, really fun project, really exciting projects. I'm working on a lot of new developments, doing the building from the ground up, which has always been something I've hoped for. So yeah, you can go to TaylorSpellman.com and Taylor_Spellman for Instagram, and follow along and give us an email if you want to have a question or whatever.
That's awesome, Taylor. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you very much, LuAnn. Appreciate it.
So what do you think? Another quote-unquote overnight success? I don't think so. No, I think we're talking about tons of hard work and, more importantly, very specific and very strategic hard work. Taylor had a vision for her career and her firm, and she has taken every step along the way to make it happen. And I just loved her line when she met Ryan Serhant. I'm going to stage your next project and design it, and then you're going to work with me from that point on. I mean, you can picture her saying this. I just love it. It's full on, I'm going for it attitude. Awesome. But now, don't forget the other side of that exact same story, how the contractor stole 10 grand from Taylor and walked off the job. Did she crumble? Did she make excuses? No. She picked up and she put her boots on the ground and she made sure that the project got finished. You see, that's the part of the overnight success stories that we don't often hear about. It sometimes looks like it's all luxury high-rise apartments and TV shows. But when you really listen to Taylor and hear about her career, you can hear how hard she's worked and how smart she's worked since she was a young woman. We learned how many times that she went after something specific and it didn't work out, but she didn't give up. She knew she had what it takes and she believed in herself and she kept at it. I just loved meeting Taylor and I felt like it was so nice to know her backstory. I hope you did too. And if you haven't seen her show, you have to go to Bravo and check it out. Grab yourself a glass of wine and just sit back and watch Taylor create magic. Now, before you turn the podcast off and get back to your regular life and your regular day, take a few moments to think about your business. Are you where you want to be? Take a good hard look in the mirror and ask yourself, are you working hard? Are you working smart? Are you making a business and a career that you had intended to make? Or are you making excuses? This is a good time of year to take stock. It is the time of year for us to analyze our numbers, our staff, our clients. What we can't forget to analyze ourselves. See if you need to step up to the plate and start bringing your A game. That's it for today, everybody. I really appreciate your tuning in. And I'll just say to you that in the next couple of weeks, please be sure to take a look out for some of the specific Power Talk Fridays coming up. Kay Whitaker and Krista Cooper will both be back. Kay is talking about what we have to look at in our previous year, 2016, to make good evaluations of how we've worked and what we've done. And Krista is going to talk to us about goal setting for 2017. So be sure to catch those couple of episodes in December. Thanks so much for listening. Have an excellent day. Thank you for joining me again today for another episode of A Well-Designed Business. This podcast is a production of WindowWorks in Livingston, New Jersey, your trade resource for custom window treatments and awnings. Learn more about WindowWorks at www.windowworks-nj.com. All of our music is original music by Room 2 Productions. Please contact us if you want to learn more about original music for your business or your events.